This is Dan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth. It's a beautiful day here in British Columbia, my friends, and I am feeling vindicated today. I'm feeling very vindicated. As you can tell by the title of this video, the Covid-19 84 Wuhan Lab leak is no longer a conspiracy theory. Yes, this is something that I was laughed at and called a conspiracy theorist for reporting on. In fact, I believe I was the first one to report on. I don't know of anybody who reported on this before me. I put out this video, ladies and gentlemen, the truth about the coronavirus they hope you'll never see, in January of 2020, January of 2020, where here we say the recent outbreak of the coronavirus in Wuhan, China, as the making of this video, has 653 confirmed people to have come into contact with the virus, with 18 people dead. But where did this new mutation come from? Some researchers are suggesting that the virus was transferred to humans via bats and/or snakes, while the World Health Organization is scrambling to find answers. A good place to look might be the National Biosafety Laboratory in Wuhan, where the spread began, which just so happens to be the location for the first lab on the Chinese mainland equipped for the highest level of biocontainment. In this video, Dan Dicks of Press for Truth looks at the possible sources of this virus and the fact that a lab in Wuhan was working on studying the pathogen that causes SARS, aka the coronavirus, in the lead up to this recent outbreak, while also analyzing Bill Gates' prophecy of doom from 2 years ago, where he predicted that a virus could soon take up to 30 million people. And once again, guys, this was uploaded in January of 2020, and here we are nearly a year and a half later, and what was once laughed at as being just a conspiracy theorist, quote, debunked by the Washington Post, is now once again on the table and being reconsidered. Get a load of this from the Washington Post. The Post becomes the latest media outlet to walk back debunked conspiracy theory Wuhan Lab leak coverage. The Washington Post has become the latest media outlet to reverse its earlier instance that the Wuhan Lab leak theory was a debunked conspiracy theory. The newspaper published an article in February 2020 by Paulina Ferozzi labeling the explanation a, quote, debunked conspiracy theory, but has now been forced to issue a retraction. Earlier versions of this story and its headlines inaccurately characterized comments by Senator Tom Cotton regarding the origins of the coronavirus, states the retraction. The term debunked and the Post's use of the word conspiracy theory have been removed because then, as now, there was no determination about the origins of the virus. So they just openly admitted that then, as of now, there's no, it was yet to be determined. Well, if it was yet to be determined, why are you going around saying it's all a conspiracy theory? This is just debunked nonsense. Do not look into this particular theory when you didn't actually know that that was the case. That's biased reporting. That's propaganda. That's controlled information. That's why we need to continue to bring this information to you guys and why we need you to continue to support Press for Truth. Let's continue. It says here, the correction was made after independent journalist Michael Tracy reported that journalist Paulina Mila had flagrantly mischaracterized a key expert she had quoted in an article. Just saw this, Washington Post has now corrected the article declaring the lab leak theory a debunked conspiracy after I reported that journalist Paulina Mila had flagrantly mischaracterized a key expert she quoted in the article. Michael Tracy says, as new evidence emerges for COVID lab leak theory, journalists who screamed conspiracy humiliate themselves. The Post becomes the latest in a growing list of media outlets and fact checkers that have been forced to walk back their instances that the lab leak theory was an impossibility. Last week, Facebook announced that it was reversing a policy that banned posts which claimed COVID-19 84 was a man-made, just months after asserting that the theory had been debunked. And here that is, Facebook no longer treating man-made COVID as a crackpot idea. Facebook's policy tweaks arrive as support surges in Washington for a fuller investigation into the origins of COVID-19 84. Facebook will no longer take down posts claiming that COVID-19 84 was man-made or manufactured, company spokesperson told Political on Wednesday, a move that acknowledges the renewed debate about the virus's origins. Meanwhile, Politico was also forced to pull back a fact check that claimed it had, quote, debunked the lab leak origin theory. of COVID-1984. Washington Post journalist Glenn Kessler faced ridicule after being forced to admit that the lab leak theory was actually credible after previously attacking Senator Cruz for circulating it. However, some are still ludicrously clinging on to other ways to dismiss the whole issue, with the New York Times, Aprova Mendovia, tweeting last week that it was racist to discuss it at all. And look at this tweet she puts out. Someday, we will stop talking about the lab leak theory and maybe even admit its racist roots. But alas, that day is not here. What an absolute tool to suggest such a thing, that just by looking into the origins of this, because it happens to be from China, would suggest that someone is racist. This is just absolute nonsense. There was actually a pretty interesting op-ed put out by the New York Times, funny enough, who put it like this, and I'll just read you briefly from this one. Media groupthink and lab leak theory says here, if it turns out that the COVID pandemic was caused by a leak from a lab in Wuhan, China, it will rank among the greatest scientific scandals in history. Dangerous research, possibly involving ethically dubious techniques that make viruses more dangerous, carried out in a poorly safeguarded facility, thuggishly covered up by a regime more interested in propaganda than human life, catastrophic for the entire world. But this possible scandal, which is yet unproven, obscures an actual scandal which remains to be discussed. I mean the long refusal by too many media gatekeepers, social as well as mainstream, to take the lab leak theory seriously. The reason for this? Rank partisanship and credulous reporting, and methods by which it was enforced: censorship and vilification. Are reminders that sometimes the most destructive enemies of science can be those who claim to speak in its name. And indeed, that's precisely what we've been seeing. I was heavily censored for saying the things that I did in January of 2020. It wasn't long after that that they completely terminated my YouTube channel. No warnings, no community guideline strikes, no copyright strikes. Just out of the blue, they terminated my channel. It was gone for 7 months. They took away my livelihood. Then out of the blue, they returned the channel, apologizing to me profusely for taking it away. And I now have that channel back, but I'm going to be focusing on all the other decentralized platforms that are not going to censor this type of information moving forward, because I continue to report on these things. I talked about the Canadian connection to the potential Wuhan Lab leak because of the lab in Winnipeg, Canada, where we had, a crossover between the Canadian scientists and the Chinese scientists. In fact, this was just recently reported on here in the Financial Post by Diane Francis. Canada must be transparent about Wuhan Lab ties. This is a matter of national security as well as total incompetence, with evidence mounting that SARS-CoV-2 may have escaped from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal government could find itself in a very awkward position if the American intelligence report ordered by U.S. President Joe Biden into the origins of the virus ends up uncovering previously undisclosed information about the connections between Canada's National Microbiology Laboratory and the Wuhan Lab. As had been widely reported, a previously undisclosed U.S. intelligence report revealed that 3 researchers working at a Chinese laboratory were hospitalized in November of 2019 with symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and common seasonal illness, which has lent credibility to the lab leak theory. We also know that the high-security National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg was conducting research into deadly pathogens in partnership with the now notorious Wuhan Lab. And although the public doesn't have all the information, a series of firings and police investigations related to the Canadian lab point to troubling developments that have taken place behind the scenes. In July of 2019, the head of Winnipeg's Lab Vaccine Development and Antiviral Therapies section in the Special Pathogens Program was Chinese virologist Zhangyo Zhu, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That month, she and her husband, Keding Shang, along with a number of her Chinese students, were marched out of the lab by the RCMP. At the time, officials made no comment, said it was a procedural investigation. But some experts raised concerns about the possibility of unauthorized shipments of deadly viruses or stolen intellectual property being sent to China. The two of them were later fired after the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS, called for their security clearance to be revoked on national security grounds. Again, this is all being reported on by me early last year. Again, the mainstream media would often just brush it off, call people like me conspiracy theorists, and then when, you know, the mainstream masses sees the Washington Post saying, oh, this is just a debunked conspiracy, guys, don't worry about it, forget about those crazy conspiracy theorists, it legitimizes in the minds of the masses. They think, well, the Washington Post wouldn't put that out if they didn't really do their due diligence. Guess what, guys? They don't. This is a big setup. This is a big scam. They're all controlled. They're all pumping the fear state into you. It's a 24/7 COVID-19 84 cycle right now. It's all about the fear state. It's all about absolute total control, leading to this eventual global inoculation program, which they're going to try to finish. And it's absolutely imperative today, guys, that we get the information out that this is happening. We're going to continue to raise awareness about these things. We're going to continue to be laughed at and called conspiracy theorists. That's fine, because as time goes on, we continue to become vindicated. So thank you so much to everybody who has continued to support my work, who shared these videos, who have been saying, you know, guys, look at the other side of this. Don't take it from the mainstream. Take a look at what this guy is saying. And yeah, it's a good day to know that the information we've been putting out is now being considered by the mainstream and not really brushed off as just crazy conspiracy theory. That's how it's been going, guys, if you've been paying attention to my work over the last 16 years here at Press for Truth. Thank you so much to everybody who has been. Don't forget to click that thumbs up button, share the video, and don't forget to check us out at pressfortruth.ca/donate if you do want to support our efforts to continue to bring you this information. Links are located in the description below. Thanks again, guys. Stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. This is Dan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth with some important information in regards to the coronavirus, which is now crippling China. We are seeing that China has quarantined Wuhan amid the coronavirus outbreak. Wuhan has shut down all their public transport over the outbreak. In fact, 7 cities are now under lockdown in China due to the Wuhan coronavirus. All of them are near Wuhan. This amounts to 12 million people being restricted from traveling. A lot of people are questioning what this is coming from. Studies are suggesting the role of bats and snakes in the coronavirus. We're seeing disgusting clips like this come out. Revolting footage shows Chinese woman eating a whole bat at a fancy restaurant as scientists link the deadly coronavirus to the flying animals. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the coronavirus and how it is connected to SARS, the severe acute respiratory syndrome related coronavirus, sometimes shortened to SARS-CoV. We're also going to take a look at this Verge article that makes a claim that China lied to the World Health Organization about SARS. So if they were lying then, are they lying about this too? We'll also take a look at this Business Insider article that says Bill Gates thinks that a coming disease could kill 30 million people within 6 months and says that we should prepare for it as if we do for war. This was a couple of years ago, guys. And last but certainly not least, we're going to look at this very telling Nature.com article where they go inside the Chinese lab poised to study the world's most dangerous pathogens. And where is this lab located? Wait for it. Wuhan, China, the first lab on the Chinese mainland equipped for the highest level of biocontainment. So we're going to cover all of that in this video and much more, guys. But just before we do, I'd ask that you head on over to pressfortruth.ca/donate to support the efforts and the information that we're bringing out on this YouTube channel. You can do so by clicking the links on the screen that are right here or in the description below. It'll take you here to where you can contribute a one-time PayPal donation. You can contribute Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You can join as a member. You can click the Patreon alternative, the Patreon link and join as a patron, or the Patreon alternative link, sign up for a monthly reoccurring amount. If you don't like PayPal or Patreon or any of those things, you can also sign up to Subscribestar. This is another place where you can sign up for a monthly reoccurring amount, and any amount certainly is greatly appreciated and goes a great deal in helping me to continue to put out this very, very important information, including this, which we're going to touch on today, the coronavirus, which, as we saw, has 12 million people quarantined in China. Now, this, of course, is related to SARS. We see the severe acute respiratory syndrome related coronavirus, sometimes shortened to SARS-CoV, is the virus that causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, otherwise known as SARS. On April 16, 2003, following the outbreak of SARS in Asia and secondary cases elsewhere in the world, the World Health Organization issued a press release stating that the coronavirus, identified by a number of laboratories, was the official cause for SARS. Now, again, why would China lie to the World Health Organization about SARS back when they were trying to, do their inspections? Well, we see here, according to The Verge, during the SARS outbreak, Chinese officials attempted to conceal cases from the World Health Organization inspectors and limited information both internally and externally. This time, officials quickly reported the outbreak of the new virus to the World Health Organization, which praised their quick response and transparency in the press conference. So, yay, you did the right thing this time. But what about that thing they did last time? During the SARS outbreak, Chinese officials attempted to conceal cases from the WHO inspectors and limited information, both internally and externally. The only reason why the Chinese officials would attempt to conceal something is if they have something to hide, guys. And what could they possibly have to hide when it comes to the SARS virus? Could it be that it was accidentally released from one of their labs, or could it be that it was intentionally released from one of their labs? Well, I think we'll gain some interesting insight when we look at this particular Business Insider article that was put out April 27, 2018, where Bill Gates says he thinks a huge disease is coming that can kill 30 million people. It says here, if there's one thing that we know from history, it's that a deadly new disease will arise and spread around the globe. The article goes on to say here, very interestingly, according to Gates, a small non-state actor could build an even deadlier form of smallpox in a lab. So already we're seeing the billionaire alluding to the fact that it's possible that a non-state actor could build a deadlier form of smallpox in a lab. Keep that in mind. As we continue here, we see the disease that takes people by surprise is likely to be one that we see for the first time at the start of an outbreak, like what happened recently with SARS. So again, bear that in mind. He's already alluding to what we may see could be something similar to what we've seen with SARS. Again, how are they going to deal with this pandemic? Well, before we get to that, we see this. In the case of biological threats, that sense of urgency is lacking, he said. The world needs to prepare for pandemics in the same seriousness that it prepares for war. It says, if you were to tell the world's governments that weapons that could kill 30 million people were under construction right now, there'd be a sense of urgency about preparing for the threat, Gates says. Again, weapons that could kill 30 million people, he says, are under construction right now. Wouldn't that be a cause for concern? Well, how is he planning on dealing with the pandemic? Well, wouldn't you know it, we're also getting closer to a universal flu vaccine. Gates announced on Friday that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation would offer $12 million in grants to encourage its development. How convenient. And finally, the article closes out by saying, Melinda Gates recently said that the threat of a global pandemic, whether it emerges naturally or is engineered, was perhaps the biggest risk to humanity. So isn't it interesting that Bill and Melinda Gates are saying that it's possible that this emerges naturally or is engineered, that this could be, considered weapons that could kill 30 million people, that could be similar to SARS. It's possible that this is going to be engineered in a lab. Remember, guys, this was posted a couple of years ago. Fast forward to today, we now have this pandemic outbreak that happens to be going on in Wuhan, the very same place where just a few years ago, they decided to set up a lab to study the coronavirus. Check this out. A laboratory in Wuhan is on the cusp of being cleared to work with the world's most dangerous pathogen. Remember, guys, this is back in February of 2017. The move is part of a plan to build between 5 and 7 biosafety level 4 BSL-4 labs across the Chinese mainland by 2025 and has generated much excitement as well as some concerns. Some scientists outside China worry about pathogens escaping. Let me say that again. Some scientists outside China worry about pathogens escaping, and the addition of biological dimensions to geopolitical tensions between China and other nations. Goes on to say they're going to, create a whole lot of opportunities around the world. It says they've gone through all the proper channels to get approved from all the people they need approval from. It goes on to say here the Wuhan Lab cost 300 million yuan, or 44 million US, and to allay safety concerns, it was built far above the flood plain and with the capacity to withstand a 7 magnitude earthquake, although the area has no history of strong earthquakes. It's going to focus on the control of emerging diseases, store purified viruses, and act as a World Health Organization reference laboratory linked to similar labs around the world. It'll be a key node in the global biosafety lab network, says lab director Quan Shiming, which is interestingly enough, and here we see he says viruses, don't have borders. It goes on to say here that worries surround the Chinese lab too. The SARS virus has escaped from high-level containment facilities in Beijing multiple times. He goes on to say in this article, they are openly admitting that the SARS virus has escaped from high-level containment facilities in Beijing multiple times, notes Richard Ebright, a molecular biologist at Rutgers University in Piscataway. Now, it also goes on to say here, these facilities are inherently dual use, he says. The prospect of ramping up our opportunities to inject monkeys with pathogens also worries rather than excites him. They can run, they can scratch, they can bite. So again, this is back in February of 2017, suggesting that there is a new lab being put in Wuhan, China, that is going to be dealing with the coronavirus. We already know they admitted to the fact that SARS was accidentally leaked out, and now we're seeing this. This is the latest as of right now, January 23rd at noon. This is the latest. Total confirmed 653 right now, with 18 total deaths. This is a live interactive map. You can check it out for yourself. I'll put links in the description, guys. But it's very, very, very interesting that Bill Gates was talking about this a couple of years ago. They began setting up in the very city where this outbreak originates from, the lab, to begin testing the very virus that has emerged from that lab. We found out that China was lying to the World Health Organization about SARS. Could they be lying about this too? Bill Gates already has the universal vaccine in development for this particular problem. It's interesting. A lot of people say, when looking at these things, you should utilize Occam's razor, which would suggest that the simplest explanation is logically, probably the most logical outcome is the simplest one. And one could argue that the simplest explanation here is that this is just happened naturally. Viruses mutate. This could have been a natural mutation that just so happens to be detrimental to humans. But I would suggest it's equally as simple and equally as plausible, due to the evidence we've shown in this video, that this could have been engineered in a lab, and this could have been released either by accident or on purpose. That's something we actually have to look at moving forward, and that's something that none of the mainstream media outlets are going to talk about when it comes to this. You're only going to hear about this being a naturally mutated disease, but I wanted to present to you today, guys, the possibility that this was either a huge mistake or something maybe even more sinister. This was actually done on purpose. Again, you're not going to get this information from the mainstream, so I wanted to bring it to your attention today. Let me know what you guys think about the, the quarantine, the fact that 12 million people are not allowed to leave, these studies that are suggesting it's coming from bats and snakes when meanwhile we're finding out that there were labs in the very city where it originated from, where they were specifically dealing with the thing that leads to SARS. Here it is. Future plans include studying the pathogen that causes SARS. Right there in this article from a few years ago, they say they're going to study the pathogen which causes SARS. And of course, what is that? It's the coronavirus is the virus that causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. So it's not looking good, guys. Here we see from a few years ago, they're planning on doing it. A couple years later, massive pandemic comes out. Is this purely by chance and by accident a natural mutation of the virus? Or is it possible that this was released by accident from the lab, or maybe even on purpose for more sinister agenda when it comes to eugenics and that kind of stuff that the likes of Bill Gates are into? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Wanted to bring this information to your attention. If you appreciate my efforts to counter all the kind of propaganda that you get from the mainstream, if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this alternative viewpoint that you're not going to get from the mainstream media, again, please check us out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate or at subscribestar.com/pressfortruth, where you can sign up for a monthly reoccurring amount. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please click the thumbs up button. Share this video with your friends and family. Be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. And stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.